Good morning. Welcome to our Police Service Board meeting. Whoa, that's a little bit of a feedback. Welcome back to being in person in council chambers. This is a beautiful room that we have now. This has been since February 2020 since we were here last. So it's great to be back. And before we get started, I know Nancy's already taken attendance of everybody, and everybody's here, which is great. But before we get started, I'd just like to welcome Acting Staff Sergeant Andy Fox. And maybe just as a housekeeping thing, remember, we haven't done this for a while, but when you want to go to speak, the button on your microphone will turn green so that you then, and we're broadcasting on the YouTube county's website or YouTube page, so this is being live streamed. So we just want to make sure the sound is good for everybody watching as well. But we'll have Andy introduce himself to everybody and say a few things.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Andy Fox, and I have 22 years of policing so far. I started in Lambton County, in Forest and Grand Bend. Worked up there for approximately 6 years. Worked in the crime unit there for about 3.5 years. Family brought me back to Brant County, and both my wife and I grew up in the Brantford area. Went to high school around here. I worked out of the Brant County Detachment for 8 years, and that's when I met Inspector Ferguson, who assisted me in getting promoted, and I got a promotion down in Norfolk County in 2014. And I went down there for the last 7.5 years, and just as of this Monday, transferred back to Brant County, and happy to be here. Thank you.
Welcome indeed. We look forward to working with you. So item number 2, approval of the agenda. Is there anything that needs to be added, or Member Verhey?
If possible, we can add an in-camera point at the end of the meeting.
Anything else? Just a reminder for everybody that in the future we need to make sure we get items on the agenda ahead of time, because they do have to be published and publicly available and whatnot. I know things come up last minute, but we just need to make sure that we let Nancy know as the secretary of any agenda items. Motion to approve the amended agenda then, please. Mayor Bailey, seconded by Member Brown. All those in favor? Carried. Any declaration of pecuniary interests at this time? Seeing none. We do not have any delegations, petitions, or presentations today. There is some information in our package under communications about a community issue. They couldn't be here today. So we'll move into the adoption of the minutes from our previous meeting on April 19th. I'm getting a lot of feedback too, so I wasn't sure if it was just me. Okay, is that better? Much better. Okay. Can you hear me, or is it actually working? It's good. Okay. So item 5, adoption from the previous meeting of April 19th. Do we have a motion to accept those minutes? Councillor Pierce, Member Verhey. All those in favor? That's carried. Any business arising from the minutes that you'd like to raise at this time? I'll just pass, I brought a coin with me today. I'll just pass that around so you can each see it and feel it and touch it. But so we'll go right into then item number 7, the statistics with our detachment commander's report with Inspector Ferguson.
Staff Sergeant Van Gutenberg for his time that he spent with us here in Brant. His last official working day with us was May the 3rd. And of course, a warm welcome to my friend and old platoon mate, Acting Staff Sergeant Andy Fox. Comes with a great wealth of knowledge for policing, as well as some previous acting staff sergeant time already down in Norfolk, so I look forward to having him back here with me. In the community mobilization section, PC Michelle Murphy has been actively involved again this month with our MCERT worker, Eva. There were 8 crisis calls in the month of April, as well as 22 follow-up referrals to the Coast Referral Program after that. They did several meetings within our community, and she also started in-person meetings again with our community partners, and has been working on the victim support grant, the one for intimate partner violence and human trafficking, our partnership with Nova Vita that just started. She's been having some planning meetings with them as well. And she attended several meetings, and she was also off for annual leave this month. You'll see the chart below there that indicates our total number of mental health related calls for service so far this year. The next page is our school and youth resource officer report. So PC Gagnon has been very active in the kids programs again at the school. She's been doing a majority of those in person within the schools and having quite a few presentations on the OPP kids, and including a presentation on vaping to the youth. In the Community Services and Media Officer section, PC Vitalis had been very active again last month in the media. He did attend a training course, and in his place we had Acting Sergeant Ed Sanchuk here with us in Brand for a number of weeks. So lots of media, lots of videos out there. I'm sure you saw most of those there. In the community engagement section, our focus patrols finished up at the end of April, and the total number of hours and tickets issued within that focus patrol are indicated there, as well as the 3 new focus patrols that you will see running within our community from May 1st to August 31st. Our Brant Traffic Management Unit, the 2 officers dedicated to our traffic, in April completed 197 provincial offenses notices, as well as several Part 3s and criminal code charges. The 2022 totals are along the bottom there for those 2 officers. They were also involved in 29 occurrences for the month of April. Crime Stoppers are on the next page, indicating that they received 5 additional Crime Stoppers tips for the March period, is how it's reported there, and year to date, the numbers are along the bottom. Several noteworthy events occurred in the month of April, and Acting Staff Sergeant Gutenberg prepared those prior to his departure. In the Trends and Actions section on page 16, in reviewing our ICON report, which is 2 months behind for the total charges, you will see a 21% increase in total charges for the month of February this year compared to last, and an overall year-to-date speeding charges actually demonstrated that they were up 100% compared to 2021, and all charges combined, so that's liquor offense, traffic, all of the charges increased to 56%. Violent crime is down 61% for April and slightly down year to date. And our property crime, although it remains slightly increased for the year to date by 14%, in April it was actually down compared to last year. Our drug crime shows a marked decrease, but that is just as a result of 1 less trafficking charge in April. And in relation to motor vehicles, we did not have any roadway fatalities for the month of April, and our personal injury motor vehicle collisions were actually decreased, but we are still seeing an increase in the property damage collisions overall for the year compared to last year. Vehicle-related property is showing another increase for the April 22. It's another spike in theft from motor vehicle occurrences, and an overall increase year-to-date for stolen vehicles. However, it is only one more stolen vehicle in this month compared to last year, the same month. But our overall statistics for 2022 are showing an increase considerably. So we are doing quite a bit of work with our street crime unit and our members to address that issue. Just a reminder to report any suspicious activity, any break-and-enters to your vehicles. If you have video footage and you have that, please let us know. The sooner the better, then it gives us an opportunity to analyze the patterns of the individuals. Our mental health calls decreased by 3 incidents this month. However, overall calls involving everything to do with the mental health component increased year-to-date by 5%. 911 calls are down significantly again. Alarm calls were actually higher in April 22 compared to 2021. Our domestic disturbance calls increased for the month of March by 43% from last March. I just want to draw your attention to one thing in the April statistics. You'll see there are 2 sections that are blacked out there. It's because of the system, the program went down when it came to patrol hours. So I was unable to ascertain the 22 numbers for patrol hours through our DAR system, but I can update that next month. And pending any questions, that's the report for April.
Thank you. So let's have some discussion. I'm sure there's some questions and discussion points that we'd like to have. Anybody want to start us off? Councillor Pierce?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Through you, I thought maybe the patrol hours were blanked out for me special, so I wouldn't ask any questions on them, but now I guess not. No. So that was one of the questions I had. A couple things in the trends and that sort of thing. Even though there's still more on there than we'd like to see, or that I'd like to see, it appears that people are hopefully getting the message about impaired driving. There's still some on there, but we had a few months where there was quite a few, so that's a good news story. What I do see on there and trending, and I'm sure you folks are aware of it because there's a lot of talk around town about it as well, is thefts from vehicles. And it's unfortunate that it appears that, reading the report and listening to folks and stuff like that, the bulk of them are happening to unlocked vehicles. And I know that there was a lot of emphasis put on the lock it or lose it in the last bunch of years, just to try and make folks aware that don't make it easy for these people. Keep things out of sight, keep your vehicles locked, that sort of thing. I'm curious, has there been discussions within the detachment about potentially revisiting the lock it or lose it, or anything like that we can do to try and help / remind folks that lock your vehicles, don't leave change and things visible and stuff like that, because unfortunately there's some thieves out there that are preying on this type of thing. I'm curious if there's any discussions about that.
Through you, Madam Chair, thank you for the question. I did have our analysts take a look at all of the break-and-enters to the vehicles as well as theft of motor vehicles, because it does continue to rise. It is concerning for us. We are patrolling through all hours of the night. We are conducting additional focus patrols in targeted areas. One of the things that we are doing is working with our community safety groups for the Lock It or Lose It programs. We are doing those. Most of the members of those communities, unfortunately, are not out doing the Lock It or Lose It from 1 a.m. till 5 a.m., which is when we're seeing quite a few of our entries to motor vehicles. I did want to bring to attention one of the things in the report from the analyst, though, is that during this time period that she did the report, so from January 1st till now, she said that there were 19 vehicles and 1 trailer reported stolen, and that's an increase from the year before. Of the vehicles reported, 47% of the complainants reported they had left the vehicle or keys in their vehicle, and those are the ones that report to us that they've done that. So just a reminder, bring your keys inside, do not leave them out in your vehicle. Do not leave it locked. Even if you come inside and lock it with another key, that key is out there in that vehicle. Please be mindful of your keys and where they are. We did have a program called Pocket Your Keys, just a reminder to get that message out to everyone and not to leave your valuables in your vehicle in plain sight, because that is what they're looking for.
Okay, I appreciate that. And one more, if I could, Madam Chair, just on the community safety and well-being. I know that, unfortunately, and I've spoken about it in the last few meetings about the mental health calls and stuff like that. Reading in the report that there was 22 coast referrals. I'm taking that, in essence, as a good news story, that these, we do have a place and we have somewhere for referrals to go. So I just want to say that's a good thing for a lot of people out there that really didn't have that accessibility, and it's there now. So that, I'm taking that as, even though the number is high, which is a little scary, but it's good to see that, there are the referrals out there so folks can get some help. So that's a good news story. Other than that, that's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pierce. Just to follow up on your question with Inspector Ferguson about the vehicle property thefts, how do we compare to other, I suspect other regions are facing the same problem. When I look at West Region social media, there's many other detachments that are reporting similar challenges and problems. Do we have a similar rate?
Madam Chair, I do not have the actual number here to give you that comparison, but in speaking with our analyst, who is well connected with our municipal partners, everyone is suffering the same trend, specifically in our neighbors to the west of us in Oxford, and our street crimes combine Oxford and Brant, so they are very familiar with each other's demographics and what's going on in that field. So they're working closely together to help combat it in both areas. But it is the same trending in all municipalities and all counties right now. I just don't have the rates for you.
Just a point maybe of understanding the Lock It and Lose It program, which Councillor Pierce referred to, which maybe we need to do some community education on in general. It baffles me how people can leave their cars unlocked and leave their keys and valuables, all your reports, laptops, whatever in the car baffles me. We are not in 1950 anymore. So the Lock It and Lose It program, what I understand, listening to the Paris Community Safety Group, they've been doing some Lock It and Lose It programs here in Paris. The Brant North group hasn't done any yet. And maybe it's a misunderstanding, or maybe I don't understand it properly, but what I've been explained is that the volunteers of the community safety groups cannot go house to house to drop the pamphlets off or to put them on the cars. They can do them in public parking lots, like Sobeys parking lot or whatever, which there's not as many of in other communities outside of Paris, public spaces, I mean. So is that the limitations of that program for the community volunteers to be able to only be able to do certain things with that program? And I guess part two is, should we consider something broader than for the county in terms of that Lock It or Lose It communications piece?
Yes, Madam Chair, it is actually correct. You are correct. They are insured by the county as members, so they are limited to being within parking lots, within public areas. They are wearing the visibility vest when they are going out, but certainly the expectation is not that they would walk up onto somebody's property to check those doors. It would be feasible, I guess, if we let everyone know that officers would be patrolling, could check some specific areas potentially, but it's not something that we typically do, is to walk up and check people's vehicles.
Thanks for that clarification. So that does limit the program itself in terms of where it can and cannot be implemented within Paris or even within the whole county, the different communities within the county. So something to think about potentially is maybe some type of communication outreach. I know we have the piece that we're working on, but we could fill that up with Lock It or Lose It on its own. This is a prolific issue within the community, and it's one that I know in St. George, it's all over social media when anything happens, and everybody's dander is up, and here in Paris, it's the same thing with some of the subdivisions, so it might be worth brainstorming some ideas, and we can always come back at the next meeting with some ideas for how we can outreach that. Any other comments or questions? Member Verhey?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair, to the Inspector. Just 3 questions, if I may. Firstly, the mental health calls and hospital wait times. We had some extensive discussion about that 2019, I guess, and then it kind of just went away. That made me, the MCERT worker calls and that portion of your discussion here reminded me of that. Where does that stand today? Is that still a problem for our officers where they're having these long wait times in hospitals?
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the question. It is still difficult for us. As you can imagine, our emergency rooms are very busy right now. However, with having our MCERT worker embedded with our officers, the diversion rate of those taken to hospital versus those who receive outreach programs from their home after interaction with our MCERT worker has gone up considerably. So our success rate of those members who need to be transported to hospital, the number is less that are being transported to hospital, but the number that we take to hospital are actually being formed and kept. So it signifies to me that our officers and our MCERT worker are working very closely together to only take those individuals to hospital that are likely to require a form or an intake to some degree. So the 22 coast referrals are indicative to me that there's additional follow-up that can be done and support done to our members of our community from their home as opposed to attending the hospital and having long wait times at the hospital.
As a follow-up to that, if I recall correctly, there was, I think there was a memorandum of understanding that was being developed between the OPP and the hospital. Did that ever come to fruition?
Through you, Madam Chair, when I left in the fall of 2020, that was right in the midst of trying to prepare it. However, due to COVID and some changes in the hospital staff, it was never finalized. We have started our working with our partners again about 2 months ago to see if we can try to reintegrate that and get that signed as soon as possible.
Thank you. Number 2, the age-old topic of noise. I know it was just Friday the 13th, but a citizen from Paris proper stopped me yesterday and asked me what we were doing about the noise issues. So I don't have much else to bring up other than that, so I don't really know what I'm asking, but obviously, in my opinion, it came to mind because it was just Friday the 13th, and I know I was around town Thursday, Friday, and there was a lot of motorcycle activity, but has there been any follow-up or anything done differently since the last time we talked about that as well?
Through you, Madam Chair, the new exciting project Serve and Detect actually has funding in it for an initiative that we're going to do for the, so to speak, noisemakers. We're going to have an education enforcement day to where members of the public could bring their vehicles in and have discussions with officers and see what is legal and what is not legal to have on their vehicles without the fear of being ticketed at that time, just an education piece of what is allowed to be on their vehicle and what is not. So we're hoping that that will help combat some of the noise making to start.
Hopefully that's a very long lineup. And my last question, auxiliary officers, we've never really talked about them at the last meeting. We had a bit of an update on staffing and whatnot, and I understand we do have auxiliary officers. So a bit of a twofold question, more in general, what exactly do they do for us in the county, and more specifically, talking about this Lock It or Lose It program, is there an opportunity for them to be involved in something like that?
Through you, Madam Chair, so our auxiliary officers have multiple functions. As a previous auxiliary officer myself, We would do lock it or lose it campaigns. We would attend with the community safety groups at that time. We would also do public events. So you would typically see our media officer out with one of the auxiliary members who are wearing the lighter blue shirt. On the weekend, they were in the safety village for the kickoff of Police Week. So they do have functions that are separate outside of riding along with us to calls for service. So they do a lot of the community relations within our community.
Thank you.
Question, Inspector Ferguson, about the communication and community engagement is fantastic, and the social media presence and all the breadth and depth of all the different challenges that we're faced with here in the community, I think is fantastic. And I know Council at the presentation last week also commented on that level of increase in terms of making people aware of the issues. Just a quick question though, and it's a great event, but I guess the prescription drop-off event that was this past Saturday, it seemed like it was an OPP-wide event, as many other detachments were doing the same thing. And I saw yesterday a post of 10 pounds of unused prescriptions were dropped off here in Brant, which is fantastic. Is there a way to get that into the communication channels sooner? Because it seems like that came up really last minute, to be able to be aware and get people to know that it happened. Obviously, people knew if they dropped off 10 pounds, but we probably could have had a lot more than 10 pounds if we had more communication. And I'm on that every day, and I didn't see that till about Thursday, like 2 days before the event. So I just wondered, with great events like that, and I know there's challenges with human resources and people being different places, but I'm sure the county would share it. I'm sure that there'd be different ways we could get it out into the channels. I'm not sure if there's opportunities for that moving forward.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I will apologize on that one with our media officer being away on the 3 weeks of the motorcycle training course. It was upon me to let Acting Sergeant Sanchuk know that we were going to also host one of those events, and it was one of the things that I slipped my mind in sharing with him. He did get to it, but certainly just the week before. So if Conrad is working, he is on top of all of those things. I'll be more mindful in the future to make sure I follow up on that when he's away.
That's great, thank you. I know when we did the volunteer check as well on the Saturday, I just know some community people felt that if they had more notice on some of these Saturday events to get to the detachment, because it's not exactly, like it's a planned event, right? It's not like a spontaneous thing that you're just gonna pop by. More notice and the people's, awareness, the better. And it can't hurt to over-communicate that way anyways. But I understand the challenges of, there's only so many hours in a day and so many things you can possibly get out there. But it's all great stuff. So the fact that we diverted that from the community is perfect. So any other questions or comments or points you'd like to raise at this time with the detachment commander's report? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Inspector Ferguson. We do not have a false alarms report this month. That will be next month, I believe. Correct? All right. So at this time then, we'll need a motion to receive the detachment commander's report as presented. Thank you, Mayor Bailey. Seconded by Member Brown. All those in favor? And that's carried. Section 8 is communications. There's a few things in our package. 8.1 is the 2023 Municipal Policing Billing Statement Property Count. And you'll notice on that memo, they've taken the information from the impact data and given us a property count, and I'm sure if that's not correct, county staff will ensure that there's some communications, but this is for our information in terms of, and that will then turn into being used for billing. 8.2 is some communications from the Ontario Association of Police Services Board regarding the announcement of Lisa Darling as the new executive director, taking over from Fred Kostanen. Some of us will be familiar with Lisa Darling, as she was here in Brant for 6 weeks last spring as an interim detachment commander, so we've had an opportunity to work with her. And I know Member Brown and I are looking forward to seeing her in person next week at the conference and being able to congratulate her. So that's great news that we have someone in place that we know and are aware of. Stop me if there's any questions or comments on anything as we go through this. 8.3, all chiefs memo regarding police service board members and elections. And this refers to both the upcoming provincial election and also the municipal elections. And requires us to advise police service board if there's intention to run. I know there's some challenge, we want to make sure that we have some communications or we're clear about our intentions to let us know. I don't believe we have specific policies as a police service board, but we are also to let our police service advisor know as soon as possible. Seems how the June election's only 2 weeks away. I don't think anybody here applies to that, but when the municipal election comes up, then we can deal with that at that time. And then the second page of that is the advisors that we have for our zone. Okay, 8.4, I believe it's submitted as a joint community policing meeting minutes, but I believe it should say Paris Community Safety Group minutes. I was there, so I know it was not a joint. I'll let Mrs. Stone know that probably should be corrected, but just wanted to make you aware that was the Paris Community Safety Group meetings minutes that were submitted from March, and that meeting was held at the Detachment. I'm not sure if there's anything on that anybody wants to discuss. And then the last piece of communications, Jessica couldn't be here today as a delegation, so she did send in this message that's in 8.5 in your package regarding the Pinehurst subdivision. There's been several cars and vehicle entries and stolen property. Councillor House attended a public meeting in the park with them, and I believe OPP's attended to several different discussions. Inspector Ferguson's talked as well to Jessica. I've reached out to her to invite her here as a delegation if she'd like to speak as well. So there's been many different points of contact with the community neighborhood. They're expressing the same frustrations that I think many of our neighborhoods are expressing, and the concern that brings. And also, I think the concern that could escalate to other things besides just vehicle entries. So she put this together here, and I don't know, Inspector Ferguson, maybe I should defer to you for a moment, because I know you've also spoken with her in terms of follow-up.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I did speak to her on the phone. She is away this week, but she is going to follow up with me when she returns. She has some interest in the Community Watch program that is offered through the OPP, as well as I have given her some additional information about the Safeguard program and invited her to attend any of the community safety group meetings to discuss some of that further. I know that our auxiliaries have been presenting on Safeguard at each of the community safety groups, so that is also another support for that community. But I will be following up with her when she returns.
Thank you. I don't know if there's anything further at this point, but I believe Jessica is planning to come in the June meeting. And we have a communication dialogue open with Inspector Ferguson and herself. And I think that she's expressing the frustration and concern that many of us in the county are feeling as well. So it's timely and it's relevant to what everybody's hearing and listening right now within our communities. So I do know in St. George, there's not a day that goes by that I don't see some type of OPP presence in there at some point in time or another, even driving over here this morning. So thank you for that. I think that's important to be visible in our communities, and it is appreciated. So we'll follow up with Jessica next meeting if there's anything further, unless anybody has anything else they want to add to that. Okay, so I think that is everything for communications. Oh, my Bradley?
I'd just like to make a motion to receive the communications, please.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Seconded by Councillor Pierce. All those in favor? Thank you, that's carried. Okay, let's go into section 9, and that's updates. Council communication, Councillor Pierce.
Thanks, Madam Chair. First off, just from Council, thank you for your attendance at our meeting last week. It was well received. And I think it's definitely something we've spoken as a police services board and we've spoken as council, the fact that that's definitely something we want to keep going. It was a good discussion, and as I say, well received, and going forward, let's continue to do that, whether it's, you know, semi-annually, quarterly, or however we want to do it. It's a good thing. Let's just put it that way. We've touched on a couple of the things that already that I want to bring up here, that I've received from different members of council in their wards. Obviously, it seems to be the trend of speeding, loud mufflers, that sort of thing, and I know that there are some things that the OPP is doing to try and inhibit that. I'm just trying to understand, because I've had a few emails with folks just kind of, you know, vetting a little frustration in regards to when they suggest certain areas for speeding vehicles and stuff like that. I try and explain to them that, you know, you folks are trying to cover the whole county. We can't be everywhere all the time. I'm curious if there's something that through Brant Safe Streets, if there's some way to do a blitz on exact locations where these, and I know you are doing some of them, but exact locations where these folks are coming in saying, you know, from this time to this time, like as I know, you know, morning and evening on Willow Street and stuff like that, and the same down at the south end where I live on Washington Street. It seems to be, you know, certain times a day, it's definitely much worse than others. And I'm not sure if that's taken into consideration when you do the focus patrols, or if it's just a, you know, a 24-hour blitz, or how it's done. So I'll leave that as it is, and I know there's work being done on it, so that's good. And obviously the reports of the number of speeding tickets that are you know, continuing to increase, that is a good thing. So to me, that shows that we're starting to chip away at it, which is again is a good thing. And as I've said for the longest time, when we hit them in the pocketbooks, then they'll finally figure it out and slow down. One of the other things, and it seems to be, I don't know if it's just the time of year or just what it is. And again, it's overall in the reports of the break and enters and the thefts and that sort of thing. It seems to be, you know, kind of they kind of move their way around Paris, and I know it's outside of Paris as well, but I don't know, does that fall under the, you know, the street patrol gangs type thing? I'm not sure which part of the detachment looks at that, or whether it's just officers on patrol on a nightly basis, but it just seems that over the last month or so, and I've got word from several different councillors that you know, there's been, you know, noises in the backyards and break-ins and that sort of thing. Again, as we've spoken about today, I know there is some things going on that, but I've been asked to bring things up, so that's what I'm doing. The other one, and you spoke of it in regards to people with video and stuff like that. I know there last month there was a video of a couple cars racing down Washington Street, and it was captured from somebody's, like whether it's a ring camera or whatever they have out front of their house anyway. If folks were to give that, I'll call it information or data or whatever, do they just bring it to the station and drop it off, or how would somebody go about that if they were to capture something on their camera, whether it's speeding, whether it's, you know, theft or anything like that? Because I've had a couple questions, well, what do I do with it? And my response to them was to take it to the police department, but I just want to make sure that I am directing them in the right way.
Through you, Madam Chair, video is a great tool for us to identify the times and the locations. We have to be mindful, though, for us to proceed with certain charges, we would need to identify the operator of the vehicle. Right. So although it is very helpful, it gives us some ability to be able to focus our patrols better. As far as it leading to charges, the video specifically may not afford us that opportunity. It may, depending on what we can see from there, but I encourage people to call the non-emergent OPP line. Let us know that they have video or they have information from an incident that occurred on video. It gives us the opportunity for an officer to respond and speak to that person, as well as interact with some conversation further to ascertain times of day, days of weeks. Certainly our analyst is very keen on collecting information from all calls for service, putting together patterns. She's highly intelligent, able to do a lot of that for us. So I encourage people to report those types of occurrences so that we can have more fruitful information and data to analyze.
Thank you for that. So that's all I have from council, unless there's anything you wish me to take back.
Just a follow-up to your first comment about the frequency of that, I agree, the presentation I felt went really well. I'm happy to hear that it was well received, that it hit the target then. What would the group like to see as a frequency? Because I think we should keep that diarized and not let that slip, because it is important to keep that line of communication. Now that we've established that, I think it's important to keep that line of communication open.
Through you, Madam Chair, if I could, I would suggest that, you know, as there is an election coming up in October, I would suggest that if we could put one more in before October, I think that's a good thing for this council. And then, you know, I would say, you know, semi-annually, or I think that would be good, just to kind of, like you say, the door's open now, let's keep that two-way traffic going. But if we could put one more in before end of term, I think that would be beneficial for both sides. Just my thoughts. Mr. Mayor, what do you think?
Agreed? Yeah. Okay, thanks for that feedback. Okay, anything else then on council communication, or anything that you would like Councillor Pierce to take back at this time? Okay. 9.2 OAPSB Zone 4, Member Verhey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It was a productive week for Zone 4. It's exciting that we have a new executive director. I had a very good meeting with her yesterday. And we also had a Zone 4 meeting on Wednesday, May 11th. So it was a very, very short meeting, and it was mainly to introduce Ms. Darling as our new executive director, so talk a little bit about that. And looking for a replacement for the OAPSB Zone 4 position, because Kurt Allen has moved on to the Canadian version of OAPSB, so there was a bit of a gap there. But I think it was a 29-minute meeting, so it was very short, and but positive with the changes that are going to come. And that's all I have to comment at this point. I think we'll have some further discussion later.
Any questions for Member Verhey at this time? Okay, none. Just a quick update then on some of the chair's activities. I just want to acknowledge first that it is Police Week this week, May 15th, which is a great day. This is the day I was born. May 15th, all through the week. It is, the theme this year is Your Police Services Helping Build Safe Communities. I know there's a number of different public relations and communications outreach activities that all police services are doing during this week. But I just want to acknowledge our OPP members and staff and civilians, auxiliary, everybody involved with the OPP Brant Detachment with this Police Week. I think the theme, you know, helping build safe communities, I know our members do that both on the job and off the job, whether they're volunteering in their communities or helping out or whatever they're doing. So I know that that's a 24/7 thing, and we appreciate all the work that they do both here in Brant and in their homes as well, in their home communities. So thank you to all our OPP, and Inspector Ferguson, please pass that along to everybody for us. Just a touch on the council presentation. We did have also Superintendent Early join us, for those of you that weren't there or didn't watch us. But that was a great addition to have her join us and to have that resource and that insight that she provided. One of the things I just wanted to highlight, I know Councillor Pierce and Mayor Bailey, you heard this, but maybe for the benefit of Member Brown and Member Verhey, one of the questions brought up from councillors was about the use of Grand River Street North and the big trucks, and that's not supposed to be on those roads. And it was a great opportunity for Superintendent Early to offer a suggestion, which I thought was quite innovative, and perhaps that's something that there's some follow-up with the Brant Safe Streets program. I hope there is anyways. Is her experience in Windsor with all the convoys and road closures. Brant can work with Google and Maps and all the different apps that are out there for wayfinding and all the different things that are out there. Brant can work with those groups to indicate those roads are not for use of trucks. So when the truck driver who's from out of town punches in their GPS coordinates of where they need to go make their next delivery, the route would tell them that that's not an option. It's not, and they would detour them around to the actual road, truck road options and detours. So I thought that was an innovative suggestion, and I just thought we should earmark that, because that might be a way to proactively help that situation, because I know, Councillor Pierce, that is a bug for many here in Paris with that, and yeah, so, and driving through downtown here does make it difficult with those trucks as well. So if that's an opportunity that we can collaborate with Brant Safe Streets, with the OPP, with whomever, Council Police Services Board, and proactively try and do that, I thought we should earmark that and have that on the agenda. So that presentation went really well, I felt. Inspector Ferguson reviewed a number of different things that are initiatives that are happening. One of the things I think that we would like to do in a future meeting is have Inspector Ferguson talk to us about the new funding program. I don't remember the title off the top of my head, but it's something really catchy that I can't remember now. But to just explain to us what exactly is involved. She did talk a little bit today about some of that protect and serve or something. Serve and detect, thank you. I think protect and serve is a model of one of the police services somewhere else. Anyways, Councillor Pierce, you had mentioned a couple of things, and Inspector Ferguson talked about the education and awareness in that project. I think it'd be helpful for us to understand what exactly is involved in that project. So Inspector Ferguson will give us an overview of the project and what it's doing. We also have invited someone from Brant Safe Streets to come in and talk to us also about the program and how that then is connected to the new funding program. So we have a little bit of understanding of what all is going on there. And then we've also invited someone to come in from the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan. They have an action item evaluation model now with some specific action items in there. I thought it would be helpful for us to have a discussion with them and how that interrelates with the work that our PP does, so that we're either not duplicating or we're connecting the dots, or we're making sure that there's collaboration or what have you, that everybody's on the same page. So that'll be a future meeting as well. And then I'd also like to come back, now that it's 2 years later, I'd like to suggest that we invite Councillor Gatward back to a meeting. We have a plaque to acknowledge her time as being chair, and we kind of stalled out on that with COVID, and we said we were going to do that. So I'd like to suggest that we get that on the agenda at some point in the future as well, so that we can acknowledge her appropriately and do that. As well, some of the questions that came up in the council presentation were also about seniors fraud and fraud in general, and noise complaints, and also some questions about our communications and outreach, whether there's going to be town hall meetings or the communications piece that's being planned for the community. So there was some really good conversations and feedback that way. And then lastly, was able to be at the detachment for Acting Staff Sergeant Gutenberg's last day in the detachment. Some of you already know this, but I was able to give him the first coin, which I thought was appropriate given his work to develop the project in the first place. And actually, Acting Staff Sergeant Fox was there, and a number of other of our detachment partners, Norfolk, Oxford. They were having a meeting that day, so they got to see what we were doing in the detachment. So we gave Ben the first coin and a small token, small gift as a token to thank him for that work and to wish him well as well, because that was his last day. And then we'll be working now with Inspector Ferguson and I will be working to figure out the distribution now of the coins to our members, and what the best plan of action will be for that. So that I thought it was appropriate to do them first before we then circle back to any of the others. We'll get into the auxiliaries, we'll get into the civilians, and then we'll circle back to the service board after everybody else is completed, if that makes sense. I think that's it for now in terms of my outreach, and unless there's any questions or comments or suggestions. 2020. So then 2022 priorities. I don't know that we have anything different. I know 2 years ago, we specifically laid out some priorities for the Police Service Board. Certainly don't need to do it today, but if there's anything that needs to be updated or changed or, you know, brought forward on a higher priority level, we did put a lot of emphasis on communication and outreach and council communication, community communication. That was kind of our focus point. But if there's something else we'd like to, as a board, prioritize, let's have that conversation at a future meeting, or offline we can talk about it as well so that we can get something prepared. This is separate from what the OPP will put together for their, you know, action plan and priorities for the community. This is our Police Service Board ones. If there's no other updates at this time, okay. So I do believe we have a request to go in camera. So we'll need a motion to do so, please. Councillor Pierce, seconded by Member Brown. All those in favor? And we just need to give the folks here a minute to get themselves coordinated so that we can go in camera. Okay, we're back here in open session. Thank you, everybody. A couple of just small housekeeping things that we have left to do here on the agenda, unless there's anything else anybody wants to discuss. But our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, June 21st, here back in council chambers. I believe we'll have one presentation that day anyways, and then July, we'll have another presentation, so we're not loading them all up at the same time. We'll break for August, as we traditionally do, and then we'll be back into the fall. And to Councillor Pierce's point, we'll try and schedule something with council before that council breaks for the municipal election.
To that, can Marty, can we get the entire police board there so council can see everybody? Because I think, in all honesty, and it's whether it's, true or not, it's one of those putting the faces to the names, right? I think that's part of it. And if we come as a cohesive PSB to council, then I think that's going to be one more step.
Yeah,
right?
that's a great idea.
Just
You
to-
two
just
are
to-
already there, Mayor Bailey and yourself, so then Member Brown and Member Verhey will coordinate to make sure.
I think it's
everybody-
important for everybody to see the face, not just the name, right?
Yep,
Anyway.
perfect.
Okay.
Member Verhey? So I expect then at the next meeting, Marty, you're going to have a nice full written report for us, since you're going to be so much more active and everything's going to be agenda. It's going to be all itemized and everything's going to be there. Okay, great. So there's nothing further. We've kind of zigzagged over on our agenda here, but I will adjourn the meeting at 10:19. We are a little bit early today, so enjoy the rest of the day.